ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this brilliantly curated panel discussion on cinema and its business models, as it were. We have with us bosses of some of the top studios or production houses in Mumbai. I think they deserve a bigger applause than this. We also have a person who tells these bosses what to do, what not to do, what they got right, what they did not get right. That's Shailesh here with Ormax. I'm going to start this conversation with a confession that nobody knows for sure, right? And when we make that admission, that conversation thereafter becomes a little less pretentious. Everything is a point of view. And I'm going to start with something that we did know for sure. And I'm going to start with you, Shailesh, and then get on to all the panelists here. Because when we talk about the theatrical business, as it were, one thing that was clear after the pandemic was that there were two phases when it came to the business of cinema. One was a phase that was before the pandemic. The other was a phase thereafter, in the sense that one, because there was a shock that have people just completely given up the habit of going to the theater in the first place. And lots of experiments happened as a result of it. Lots of films became hits that nobody thought would be, et cetera, et cetera. From where you sit, where you're looking at numbers, and numbers don't lie, no matter what our opinions may be, what did you make of a pre-pandemic world in the theatrical business and the post-pandemic world thereafter?
Hi. So, Mayank, it's interesting because if you look at the macros, total box office is one macro, total footfalls is one macro, and the third one would be number of unique people going to theaters in India every year. All these three numbers fundamentally have not changed, not only pre or post-pandemic, even from 2013 or 14.
Really?
So 15 crore people in India roughly go to theaters once a year. That number is frozen in time. That number should go up, but it has not gone down either. I think what happened was that it's a pure coincidence that the pandemic overlapped with a phase when streaming was really coming up in India. If the pandemic hypothetically would have happened in 2015, I don't think this topic would have been even a topic of discussion. But because streaming was there and streaming really benefited from those 2 years, because people were home and content consumption started on OTT and subscriptions increased, a certain segmentation of what is an OTT film and what is a theatrical film suddenly became very clear to audiences. It would have probably evolved organically over 3-4 years, but that process kind of happened within 6 months, 1 year. And that then, in fact, impacted the kind of films that worked in theaters versus the kind of films that did not work in theaters. OTT is a bit of a leveler in terms of starcast, for example. You don't really care too much about stardom on OTT, so that kind of little bit of that effect was also felt because audience taste would evolve in a certain way. Languages became less of a barrier. But pretty much all the changes that are attributed to the pandemic are actually changes that have their roots in streaming coming up in the same period, because fundamentally the macros are not different. So I think it's impacted taste, and over time it also leads to a certain stereotyping of taste that, okay, this is an OTT film and this is a theatrical film, and every once now and then a film will come and break that notion. But I think it's pretty much where we were earlier. There is only 7 to 8% of India or 10% of India at max which goes to theaters. Neither has that number declined nor has that number gone up. And the average number of films is 4 to 5 a year. That number has not changed either. From a larger perspective, I think nothing really has changed, but the content choices may have evolved, which is then, I think, a subject of more a content discussion.
At a micro level, of course, one felt those changes because that was being excessively reported. ये नहीं चल रहा, वो चल रहा है, लोग जा रहे हैं, नहीं जा रहे हैं, ये पिट गई, कोई theater पे नहीं है. From your perspective, guys, I'm going to start with you, Devendra, and of course come all the way to you, Pragati. When you were looking at that picture, and you are right inside the business, so you can't look at the macro indicators. You'll look at what is it that you're going to greenlight, what are the kind of films they're going to release in theaters, what changes did you have to make, and how much has it really changed, or is it a work in progress anyway?
No, so with the caveat that, well, we have gone wrong, I think I would like to state that you start with a story because you believe in that story.
Right.
It's not to do with, what is working, what is not. So all the learnings basically are in the hindsight. You'll of course reflect back, you will go, but when you are embarking on a journey, it's about the concept that it's a story that you want to tell. And that's exactly what you want to bring it together, right? Also, the second point is whatever is working now, by the time your movie comes or your product comes out, it's going to be at least 2 years.
Right.
If you're fast, right? World would have changed by then. World would have moved. So you really can't look at the hindsight and, work on the foresight.
So are you telling me that things that you decided would be a theatrical release when you were looking at your own slate at Friday Filmworks did not change regardless of whatever happened?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because one of the things, for instance, that became a talking point was because everyone has access to OTT platforms that has a huge library from multiple languages. Hey man, why would I watch a remake? And so you made Vikram Vedha, for instance, that did not do too well. I remember speaking to Ajay Bijli at PVR. He had loved the film, and it's, his theater was playing it, and he was shocked that it wasn't doing well. He said maybe remakes don't work anymore. And then, Abhishek, from where you are, that was your directorial debut as well. Drishyam 2, you made that film. People had already seen Drishyam 2 with Mohanlal in it. You made it with Ajay Devgan, and that just killed it at the box office. So clearly there are no rules, right? So it's not like remakes don't work. Some remakes did not work, and this one was a huge, it was a surprise, like a complete sleeper blockbuster, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, I think Drishyam itself is a cult. I mean, as a brand, when we were making that film, the Malayalam one already on OTT.
Yeah.
And a lot of people ask me, do you really think people are going to come and watch in theater? I said, people are going to come watch Vijay Salgaonkar. I mean, that's a brand people want to watch ahead. I mean, it's the storyline is similar, but there are different treatment we've given. The film is more edgier this time, and I think people are more smarter than we think we are. I mean, when we talk about there is a formula, I don't think there's a formula. People come to theater, they give us a formula. This is working. And I think remake as a concept, I don't think there's you can just remake a film which is a blockbuster in certain other language. There is some USP to the film which you need to pick and make it into your own language.
Right.
I mean, Drishyam is one film which did big number after post-pandemic and actually brought the audience to theater in massive number. I mean, it's a story.
Were you surprised by it, Abhishek?
So
You can say so. I mean, you're not a biased drinks, but that was a lot of money you made.
So I never thought it would not work. I always had a feeling that it will do a 150 crore number. Because when I used to watch the film every day in the edit room. And I told my editor, like we were watching the film non-stop every day. I said, this film will surprise the number. And when the number came, eventually, I think worldwide 350 something number came. And I like, this is something which people took the number to. I mean, then people take over the film. You can't really think about okay, what's going to happen with your film. If you just have to make a good film and then audience is there to take the number ahead.
Right. Because the other thing that was being spoken about and perhaps continues to be spoken about, a few things here and there changed, but the larger perspective or the larger narrative has been that, you know what, there is such a thing as a theatrical release. That theatrical release needs to be a spectacle. That spectacle ideally should also have a star. I'm going to come to you, Aashish, obviously. You know what? Jawan, for that matter, even Pathan, but Pathan, a little before that, but Jawan also, that's the Red Chillies production with Shah Rukh Khan in it. They almost preempted what people wanted in the theaters, because you would have decided on this way before the pandemic. This was Shah Rukh Khan's comeback film, and nobody had seen those kind of numbers. And then there was a cemented thought that, you know what, only these kind of movies are going to be made. What did you think of Jawan's extraordinary success?
Yeah, so basically, purely from a planning point of view, right? If you see Jawan and if you look back, the way Jawan has been cast, the director, Mr. Attlee, who's a renowned director from the South industry, had not done a Bollywood film, so to say. It was designed in such a way that the film had to work pan-India. So in a way, it was a very different take, and this was pre-planned. This was much before the South films that had released in,
exactly,
in the South and then did business in the North.
You almost preempted it.
Which made them pan-India. But this was like, it was very well planned. And of course, Shah Rukh Sir himself is a superstar. We all know that. I don't need to repeat any of that. And he knows what works with his audience the best. So when he designs a film, he knows, we may find something right or wrong, but from his point of view, he knows the swag, he knows how he has to speak, he knows how he has to look. So he had designed everything. And the main thing that worked in Jawan, I think, which made it do the numbers, was the north-south angle. We had Nayanthara playing the female lead. We had Mr. Vijay Sethupathi playing the negative character. And of course, Atlee and his very typical, rooted, rustic kind of a film that worked pan-India across tier A, tier B, tier C cities. That's the only way you can get those big numbers, right?
Right, right. But I mean, in the sense that he was looking for a comeback, the kind of comeback he chose is exactly the sort of films that people seem to be loving at that point, because all these South films are done hugely well, but he went ahead and made a South film.
So I won't call it a South film, but yes, it was.
Well, it's a South film. The director is from down in Chennai, and the rest of the cast and the crew were literally from the South as well, right?
I would
Except
still call
Shah
it
Rukh Khan.
an Indian film.
It's an
You
Indian
know, we
film.
all are Indians. We make films together,
Right.
and it's not about North and South, honestly.
Right.
But yes, we have to be conscious about our audience and what they like across the board. You know, that's so important.
Right.
Yes, what Jawan gave to the audience was a slightly different take from what probably a director from the Mumbai industry would have done with a film with Shah Rukh sir. And I think that's what worked, because it worked with the masses. It was a very different angle, you know, the father's character, the way he portrayed himself, and everything added to it, you know,
Right, right.
Mr. Vijay
You know,
Sethupathi and all of
it's
that.
interesting that you mentioned an Indian film, and that's really the other term that became, you know, came in vogue, is the pan-Indian film, which essentially means something from down south that does equally well in the north. Pragati, when you're working in a studio, and for the longest it's been like, you know what, you make a Bollywood film, it's going to get X number of, you know, theaters, and that kind of an opening, etc., etc. You have a star in it, that star has... But then when you are looking at it in a completely different paradigm, which is a pan-India picture, does that change things for you when you were looking at greenlighting things? That's one. Second, of course, was the incredible success of Gadar. Two, I mean, nobody would have known those kind of numbers either. What did that change for you in that sense?
So, first of all, I think green lighting films, the first thing we look at is really the story and the relevance of it for the next 2 years.
Yes.
Besides the language, the lines are blurring with language markets. We can't say that this is only going to work in the Hindi market. And going back to a conversation I was having with somebody about simultaneous release across languages. Why has it not been experimented or tried as yet? So we are kind of looking at stories that would travel across languages. So the first step would be, what's the story? We have sort of relooked the concept of star and names. In the past 1 year, we have worked very hard to make story the hero, and then we'll see who we want to cast. We're seeing that with Sayyara, it's working. So I don't think we're on the wrong path as of now. If that story travels, the only releases that happened were Bahubali RRR with Rajamouli, where they did simultaneous release, and that's because the story was really unique, right? So that's in terms of language markets. Gadar is a story and legacy that actually did cut across languages, people, barriers, sheer emotion of it. Did we expect it to do the number that it did?
No, you didn't. Don't lie, you didn't.
That's what, coming to that. We did not.
Yeah.
But the confidence of the director, I think Anilji was very confident. And that's a big one for us. See, at studios, why are we betting on stories and the creators, right? We are betting on their vision, their confidence. We are there to support their vision. And the kind of confidence that you see in the creator, you can't miss it. I mean, that's what you're taking a punt on. Sure, it's easy to go back and say later on, oh, the film didn't work for XYZ reasons, or it worked for XYZ reasons. But really, the start of it is, who's your creator? What's their vision? And are you willing to take the bet on that one? And that, I think, is a big one, a big responsibility for us in the studio.
Right. You know, it's one thing to say, and again, that was the prevailing conversation, Bollywood pit gaya, Bollywood mar gaya, dead, etc., etc. But at the lowest end of the chain, there is a theatrical business, and if people aren't coming, they aren't coming. And Shailesh, it's incredible the number of attempts the theatrical business did to sort of retain either the viewers or bring them back in, as it were. One of the things was, for instance, the remakes, not remakes, the re-releases, right? There's a whole bunch of films from back in the day, like say a Laila Majnu that people hadn't seen in 2018. They went back to see it. Ye Jawani Diwani did exceedingly well. Amitabh Bachchan movies started doing really well because the theater is there, but nobody's watching the current releases. If of all the experiments that happened to sort of bring people in, what did you think of them? And which one were your favorites? And which one do you think really worked, that really pushed the needle in some form or the other?
Yeah, so re-releases in particular was more, I think, requirement that came from the exhibitor side. Because what has happened in the last 1 or 2 years is there is some kind of let's say, crisis of confidence in terms of greenlighting stories, thinking that only certain genres are working,
right.
action being the dominant umbrella genre. So a lot of films are either not getting made, their scripts which are probably at some stage of deliberation. Hopefully, Sitare Zami Pe Sayara kind of films kind of remove those doubts. But because less films are getting made, if you see number of films which are releasing, let's take a basic cutoff of how many Hindi films released in 1,000 screens or more. If we see pre-pandemic numbers, that number would be in a year around 45 films, which is, say, one a week. 1,000 screens or more is like a basic marketable film. Now that number is, in the last 2 years, down to around 60% of that, so it's become around 33, 34 films.
And there are 54 weekends.
Yeah, so,
right.
So you suddenly have open weekends, and many of them. And to keep some sustained footfalls, re-releases would make sense. The moment the calendar looks as busy as it used to in 2018-19, this will go away because it's really, I mean, even the best re-release would probably do, Sanam Teri Kasam would do a business of 20-30 crore. So it's not really going to show up in any big picture of industry health and all of that. But I think it comes because, I mean, you have to at least keep a theater running. And if you're going to have 3-week, 4-week gaps, then it doesn't really help. But the larger point there is of a certain crisis of confidence in being able to say, okay, you don't have to necessarily do only franchise and action films. There is room for all kind of content. And I'm like, what has happened to Sayara, well, we'll discuss it probably more as well. I think the happiest thing to have come out of it is that it does break myths, and because otherwise there's a lot of following the ball and trying to guess what happened last week and trying to now use that as a formula for the next 2 years, and it's a losing battle. So.
Aashish, I mean, we spoke about the final end of the value chain, and the first, of course, is even before a film is made, and the fact that you need to figure out the budgets, you need to figure out what is the best business model. Sometimes the films may not work, but then you can still make money from a film that has not worked in the traditional theater market. What are the innovations that you look at as a producer, as a studio boss, at sort of de-risking yourself regardless of what happens in a theater?
Yeah, that's a very important question, Mayank, because see, it's very easy when we talk about a film like Jawan. It has Shah Rukh sir, it has Mr. Attlee as director. It's bound to do well. You know?
Abhi bol rahe hain, bound to do well. Matlab it could have.
No, what I'm trying to say, it's set to do well.
Sure. Okay? Ideally.
But as a studio, as an industry, we need to make many more films, and especially content that we can back. It's not always led by a very big name. So typically the headwinds are against you. How do you make it viable for the studio is a very important question, right? And that's your question. So keeping content as one thing that is very important. That goes without saying. So we all say content is king. Let's keep it aside. Content is great. I'll give you some examples. So when I was at Yashraj, we had this small, wing called Y Films. And so it used to make films in that 5 crore budget. Lesser known actors, no audience in the theater at that time for those kind of films. OTT hadn't really come in. We did a film called Mere Dad Ki Maruti, which was backed by Suzuki. So the entire cost of the film came from Suzuki. The film got made. It was a reasonably good film, and it did the numbers. So that was the reason of greenlighting it. Without Suzuki coming in, maybe it could not have been greenlit. That is one. But that's a rare example. The other thing we look at majorly are rebates. So again at Yashraj, I'll give you an example of a film called New York, which had John Abraham directed by Mr. Kabir Khan. The film was called New York. It had to be shot in New York. It was an expensive film because Kabir was attached to it. It was one of his first films as a Hindi filmmaker. We didn't have the budget to actually make it at that cost. We studied all the rebates around New York. We found that Pennsylvania had a very good rebate. And Pennsylvania is a neighboring state to New York. So Philadelphia is where we shot the film. It was called New York. We cheated in New York for 7 days, but the entire film was shot in Pennsylvania, and 25% of the cost came back to the producer. And that made it easy to greenlight it. A producer like Adi would still have greenlit it if he backed the content, but it made it easy and made you feel more comfortable. Other business models, when I was at Laika, we did a film called PS1. Mani sir directed it. PS1 and PS2 were shot together. So which meant that the cost of making those two films were highly subsidized. You had the actors in character, you had everybody in character, you were not going back to the same set again to do the second part, and you had the technical team which was probably working at 1.5 the cost as opposed to 2x. So all these things kind of helped it to make it in a certain budget and made at one go with the actors being in that character, and we know the results. You know, so there are different unique ways of finding models to do your film in different ways. One could be rebates, one could be finding a partner in terms of a brand, one could be like this new trend of now shooting two films together so that it offsets your cost. And of course, not to, you know, that what doesn't change are sequels and franchises, and they will continue to do well.
Right, right. I mean, of course, the example that you started with, Aashish, is what was known as the Y films and what we now call the OTT films, right? Because the moment the OTTs came into the picture, that I've never known a time when it's been good for a medium budget picture. It's always been कि कोई screen में theater नहीं देता है, timing नहीं देता है, etc. It's always been the case, right? But it's far more so now, given that people have sort of migrated to the OTT as a platform to watch a certain kind of movies. With you guys, when you're not making the big budget, as it were, when you're looking at a film that would have otherwise been a multiplex film back in 2010 or something, and would be a film in 2019 that could still do well with an Ayushmann Khurrana or a Rajkumar Rao.
No, I just wanted to address the first question, just taking out from what Shailesh was talking about, the re-releases, right? One thing the re-releases are doing well. One thing we also need to take account of that the average ticket price for the re-releases are about 9,900, right? So people are going, people are watching, but you know, sometimes the ticket pricing is also very prohibitive. Right. And all the re-releases have, you know, come at about a ticket price of 100. Which has actually encouraged people to
the general assumption has been that, you know what, I'm going to spend this kind of money, travel, etc., and watch a film, whereas I could just watch that film for free, or I've already paid for a subscription fee at an OTT already. There were times when I've told people I really enjoyed the movie, they said, hey, you know what, I'll watch an OTT. Because it would really come after 8 weeks in any case, anyway, right?
Let me give you another example. So in TN, you know, there is a cap of 200 on tickets, right? The average ticket price would be 75, 80. A middle class family of 4 will go watch a movie, have dinner, you know, come back. They have spent about 1,000 rupees for both. Right. Here, you know, that's what you would just, more than that, you would with the ticket pricing. So the point is, you know, going to cinema is an event. You will go, you will want to couple it with something. In Maharashtra, you have to choose between, and a lot of other states, you have to choose between cinema or dinner. Versus, you know, that's a complete evening out. Right. So no, it's not about, you know, just because the movie is going to come on OTT. That might be one factor.
That's one factor, but and pricing of the ticket.
The pricing, I think, is a bigger factor. People want to go out, people want to have an evening out, but will I watch a movie? Will I have dinner? You know, but they will still be spending that money.
Right. I wish we had someone from the theatrical business on this panel to take that question. Yes.
So, audience going to a film theater to watch a movie or watching it on OTT is always going to be a constant process of evolution, right? It will depend on multiple factors, the economic growth, where the audience are today, the category that we're targeting, the audience, all of that. But at the end of the day, when we're coming back to the business model conversation, right, we're not going to stop making cinema for theaters or for digital or for both, because we don't know if our audience are going to be going to the theaters or not, right? We will continue to make cinema. And hence, going back to the business model of conversation is that I don't think that there is, at least we haven't been able to understand that there's one particular formula or business model. Rebates, the digital, music, all of these are a part of it. Right. Right now, we're in a process where in the next 1 year, we're going to be having close to 30 films across languages at the studios itself, right? But the interesting part is every film has its own business model. Depending on what we're commissioning, what target audience, what taste clusters, basis that we have gone back and said, okay, this is what will make the film viable.
Right.
So it also
So
works
it
in
changes
reverse.
from film to film.
Yes.
And I'm gonna then get to two examples from more recent weeks, as it were. One is the business model that Sitare Zameen Par followed. Amir Khan came on record, told the public, hey man, this movie will not come to an OTT platform. Now, whether it will in the future, we don't know, or whether it will go to a pay-per-view model, that's another discussion altogether. But the fact is to tell people that this is the only way to watch the film. Do you think, one, that's viable for everyone, or Amir Khan can afford it? Because the fact is that the OTTs do subsidize filmmaking as a production budget as well. You know that at least, say, a good percentage is going to come from that. That's one. Do you think that's possible? Second, what do you think of the fact that the OTT party also got over? Because with medium budget films, they said, you know what, first release it in theater. Now pandemic is over. We don't have that much budget to give you. First release it in theater. If it does well, then we'll negotiate the price. Right? Now, that's a medium budget film that nobody's going to the theater for. Then udhar bhi pit gaya and idhar bhi price kam mil raha hai. First, do you think the Amir Khan model works? Second, what do you think of is this OTT party over? So far as you as a producer.
I think the Sitare Zameen Par model right now, we still have to see what happens to it in terms of digital. We saw the theatrical response, which is great right now.
Yeah.
When it comes on YouTube or wherever it's planning to come, we need to see how much number it's clocking.
And will it be more than what Netflix would have paid them?
Correct. We don't know yet. It's the first time we are going to be looking at this kind of a model. I mean, month, 2 later, 3 later, I don't know when the film will come on digital platforms. Or maybe it might come on OTT platform again. We still don't know yet.
Right, we don't know yet.
We don't know yet what's going to happen with the numbers.
But do you see this as a trend? Or is it something that only a few massive movie stars can pull off, because that is a level of attraction that the audience has towards them?
I think Sitare Zameen Par has a little benefit of Amir Khan production being the only equity owner. When we talk about film, there are partners like maybe a studio or a producer. It's a collaborative call right now. At this point, will the model work? We don't know yet. So maybe once Sitare Zameen Par result happens and we see how it is trended or people are watching.
So you'll keep a watch on exactly what's happening.
Yeah, I mean,
to
every
this
film can't
particular-
do it for sure. I think there are films which will definitely require a platform before the film comes to theater.
Right.
Or maybe film hits the theater, number becomes big, and then the OTT happens.
But guys, is this OTT party over though? What do you think, Aashish?
First,
The kind of money they were throwing, that's not the case anymore.
let's come to Sitare Zameen Par, just to add
Yes,
to what he
yes.
said. See, also let's not forget, it's not a very expensive film. So he could take, Amir sir could take that risk with it. And of course, it's a unique model. We'll see, we'll watch. My personal view, it cannot work for others. Because you cannot ignore the money that OTT offers you in the beginning, at least for the better, bigger film, so to say. And the numbers we'll have to see on YouTube. Common sense says that it's not going to be easy to match what probably a Netflix or a Prime would have paid.
But then they would have paid if you came to their platform 8 weeks later, to be fair.
But it's okay. The business is done in 8 weeks. It's not like it's running for more than 8
Do you think it has an effect?
Yeah, no, on ground, no effect.
No
Audiences,
effect at all? People
more-
would have gone anyway, regardless of whether it's going to
Yeah,
come
so
on OTT?
first of all, people actually think Hindi movies come on OTT in 4 weeks. So this 8 weeks itself is a literal number.
Right.
And I think as Devendra was mentioning earlier, effectively when you're choosing to go out to a theater to buy a ticket and watch, it is an out-of-home experience. And fundamentally, if you see value in watching a particular title in a theater, that 4 weeks or 8 weeks is too long a wait to be, actually saying that I'll wait for it. It's a way of saying I'm not convinced enough to watch it.
Right,
It's not really anything more than that, because we have seen how the big films have got bigger, because they are also going to, Stree 2 is also going to come in 8
Right.
weeks, so is Pushpa 2
Right.
probably in 4 weeks in some of the South languages. So it's a non-issue per se, but I think what happens is it sometimes becomes a nice talking point. It's more a trade talking point. Pay-per-view model in India is so in such a nascent stage for anyone to recover anything close to what streaming rights from a Prime Video or Netflix will do is quite ambitious. So we'll have to see what eventually happens. But it didn't affect the box office for sure. I think that's
so there is nothing in terms of data to prove that people went because they knew they can't watch it anywhere else.
There's data to prove that it did not impact.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's actually conclusive in that sense.
But he did create a FOMO. Amir Khan did create a FOMO of sorts.
Yes.
That,
yes.
It's not
No,
going
and
to
that
be
was Mr. Amir Khan, a superstar with a reasonably good film. So he could create it. To add to his point, let's not forget that when films are dubbed and they come on OTT, you can choose your language. You don't have that option very easily on YouTube when you go there. So it's not going to be a very easy model to replicate for the other filmmakers. I mean, imagine a South film that does not come on Netflix or Amazon Prime and is running on YouTube in different languages. How will it monetize? No way. You know, so it's going to be a very tough model to replicate. Of course, it's a great experiment, a very brave call that he's taken, and something that we learn from, all of us.
Right. I think everything is a new thing before it happens, and then seems very, very logical once it does. And therefore, I'm going to finish with how I started, which is quite simply this week, guys. There's a movie called Sayara. It has a non-star cast, as it were. Nobody had heard of these two, leading couple. It's a genre that was told to everyone is outdated by now because, who watches romantic films? Everyone watches action films. This is a movie that comes out on a Friday. I can understand it doing well over time, but it takes a opening figure of 21 crore, which is incredible. What did you make of what you saw?
God
Yeah.
is great.
God is great.
kind. I'm sure my friends at YRF also didn't expect this. And nobody could have, There's no theory to say that it can
So,
open at 21.
Anil Varwani's point is that one of the reasons why it did exceedingly well is because they made sure that the ticket prices were sub 200. And you have to price it in a certain way for people to watch a film. Would you agree?
Yeah, totally, because 1 week before the release, they announced the discounted offer. Normally, for a lot of films, it's getting announced 1 day before, 2 days before, because what's happening is a lot of producers look at the advance booking, get a sense on, okay, there's not enough buzz around the film in actual booking level, and then they kind of come up with some kind of a tactical ticket discount thing on Thursday or Wednesday before release. In this case, it was announced the previous week as a proper, legit way of marketing the film and opening up the doors to a certain critical mass of audience showing interest.
And Gen Z, Gen Z,
Yeah.
how much can they afford when it comes to ticket prices anyway?
So I think whether we look at that earlier point on re-release ticket prices being lower or on something like this where much before the bookings open, you are aware that there is a certain discount and certain offers going on. What it does is it gives you a critical mass, and then if there is good content, music to back it up, which is necessary, because otherwise the film would still die if it's not good from that point of view. But that base was really there, and I think it's as much a marketing success as it is a content success to that extent, because you have been able to kind of break the trend of saying, I'm confident of my film, so I will not discount it. And there's been some theory that why they didn't need the discounts because the content was so good, but you needed that thrust, because somewhere you have to multiply on some foundation that the first 2-3 days of advance booking gave that film, which definitely was fueled by the ticket prices. So,
and of course, I'm going to end this conversation with hoping there are more Sayaras and there are more cinemas, and of course...
And that there are less, there's a general idea of lowering ticket prices across the board, which I really think is something that, because the industry doesn't function as a single body and everybody kind of has individual ideas, I think we've not been able to make it consistent. So these discounts are telling us that maybe this is the norm for the future itself, and maybe it should be a permanent thing.
So I don't know how many people are from the multiplex business here, but if they're watching this particular broadcast, I really hope that they reconsider the pricing of tickets across the country, and of course have more theaters also. Thank you very much, guys. This has been a fascinating session. Thank you.